The Schwartz family fits most strongly into the category of entrepreneurial legacies. Their wealth came from building a scientific tools company and maintaining family control across multiple generations. What makes the family particularly interesting is not only that David and Alice Schwartz founded Bio-Rad laboratories, but that the family managed to preserve operational influence inside a major public corporation for more than 70 years without becoming a highly public or celebrity-style business dynasty. The family story began in post-war California with David and Alice Schwartz, a married husband and wife scientific partnership. Alice and David met at the University of California, Berkeley, where David received a degree in chemistry and Alice earned a degree in biochemistry. Their scientific training became the foundation of both the company and the family culture that followed. The founding of Bio-Rad was partly practical and partly accidental. During a bridge game, a group discussed scientific products that researchers struggled to obtain. David and Alice realized laboratories needed reliable, standardized materials rather than forcing scientists to prepare everything themselves. That insight became the basis for Bio-Rad. The couple used just $720 in savings to start the company in the year 1952 in Berkeley, California. The name Bio-Rad combined biochemicals and radiochemicals, reflecting the company's early focus. The early business was highly operational. David became the outward-facing builder of the company. He was the long-serving president and CEO of the business, managing external growth, corporate leadership, sales, marketing, and business operations. Alice contributed scientific rigor, financial discipline, and long-term organizational continuity. She was a primary product researcher and strategic board member. Bio-Rad was not simply built around a single founder personality. It was a husband and wife enterprise shaped by both David's commercial instincts and Alice's technical and governance discipline. Some of Bio-Rad's initial success came from purifying industrial ion exchange resins for laboratory use. By standardizing these resins into reliable, pre-washed tools, the couple solved a major reproducibility crisis for biochemistry researchers and secured the steady revenue needed to fund future innovations. As Bio-Rad expanded into laboratory instruments, diagnostics, and life science tools, the Schwartz family maintained unusually tight control over the business. The company went public in 1966, largely to raise capital for expansion, acquisitions, manufacturing growth, and the increasing scale of scientific research markets during the biotechnology boom of the post-war era. However, even after becoming publicly traded and growing into a major global corporation, the family preserved voting control through a dual-class share structure. That governance model became one of the defining features of the dynasty. Over the decades, Bio-Rad continuously adapted alongside major changes in biology and medicine. What began as a supplier of laboratory chemicals evolved into a diversified life sciences and diagnostics company serving universities, pharmaceutical companies, hospitals, biotechnology firms, and research laboratories around the world. Bio-Rad's products and tools are deeply embedded in labs and hospitals, creating stable and recurring demand. The company expanded into areas such as molecular biology, genomics, quality control systems, clinical diagnostics, PCR technologies, protein analysis, and laboratory instrumentation. Bio-Rad also grew internationally through acquisitions and overseas manufacturing and distribution operations, allowing it to remain relevant as biotechnology became increasingly globalized and technologically advanced. Bio-Rad also has a notable major stake in Sartorius, a German life science and bioprocessing equipment summary. The company began investing in Sartorius in 2003, and over time, that stake became enormously valuable. Bio-Rad now owns a major position in Sartorius worth over $5 billion as of May 2026. David and Alice had 3 sons, Norman, Eric, and Stephen. Eric later predeceased his parents, while Norman and Stephen became more visible in the family's later ownership and governance structure. Norman, in particular, became the operating heir to Bio-Rad. He studied chemistry at the University of California at Berkeley, then joined the company in 1974 while his parents were still actively running it, and spent decades learning the business internally rather than immediately entering leadership at the top. Over time, Norman served in a wide range of positions, including corporate treasurer, general manager for manufacturing operations in the United Kingdom, manager of Bio-Rad's Japanese subsidiary, and vice president and group manager of life science. By the time he became president and CEO in 2003, he had experience across finance, manufacturing, international operations, diagnostics, and life science products. David Schwartz publicly stated that Norman had managed all aspects of the business, reflecting a succession model based on operational apprenticeship rather than symbolic inheritance. David's leadership timeline also reflected that transition between generations. He stepped down as president and CEO in 2003 when Norman assumed those roles, though David remained chairman of the board until his death in 2012. Alice remained deeply involved in the company's governance culture for decades and served on Bio-Rad's board until 2022. She passed away in 2025 at the age of 99. Alice contributed scientific knowledge, financial discipline, institutional continuity, and board-level oversight across much of the company's history. Bio-Rad's family control is rooted in its Class B common stock. SEC filings identify Blue Raven Partners, LP, as a California limited partnership holding Bio-Rad Class B shares, with Alice, Norman, and Stephen Schwartz listed as general partners who shared voting and dispositive power over the shares held by the partnership. Because Class B shares carry enhanced voting power, this structure helped the Schwartz family maintain significant influence over corporate decisions and board elections. A major challenge during the Schwartz family's stewardship came under Norman Schwartz's leadership, when Bio-Rad became involved in Foreign Corrupt Practices Act investigations tied to overseas operations between 2005 and 2010. U.S. authorities concluded that subsidiaries and intermediaries connected to the company had used improper payments and weak oversight systems in markets including Russia, Vietnam, and Thailand to help secure business, leading Bio-Rad to eventually pay roughly $55 million to resolve DOJ and SEC cases related to bribery, internal control failures, and falsified accounting records. The controversy later expanded into whistleblower litigation involving longtime General Counsel Sanford Wadler, who claimed he was fired after raising internal concerns about corruption and accounting practices. For the Schwartz family, the episode became a major test of the family-controlled governance model. Rather than replacing leadership or surrendering control during the crisis, the family maintained continuity. Norman remained CEO, while Bio-Rad cooperated with investigators, conducted internal reviews, terminated certain employees and intermediaries, and strengthened compliance systems. The family's concentrated voting control likely made Norman's position more secure than it would have been at a widely held public company, where similar scandals sometimes lead to leadership changes or activist-driven restructuring. The Schwartz family also maintained a notably low-profile public image compared to many wealthy American dynasties. Their wealth was tied to scientific infrastructure and industrial operations rather than entertainment, luxury brands, or politics. As a result, the family remained relatively unknown to the broader public, despite controlling a major global life sciences company and running a charitable medical research organization. Their long-term success appears to come from several factors working together: technical expertise, conservative operational discipline, deliberate succession planning, family voting control, and a willingness to remain directly involved in the business rather than treating it as a purely financial holding. Today, the Schwartz family remains closely tied to Bio-Rad more than 70 years after its founding. Norman Schwartz continues to serve as the chief executive officer and chairman of the board. His daughter, Allison Schwartz, is a board member and executive, representing the third generation of family leadership. Their story is ultimately less about explosive empire building and more about sustained stewardship. A scientific couple turned a modest $720 startup into a multi-generational life sciences dynasty, and then used operational training, governance structures, and family continuity to keep the company under family influence long after it became a major public corporation.